The house on Harlow Street, a name that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. It stood at the end of Harlow Street, shrouded in perpetual twilight, looming, grey and silent. The house seemed to exist in a world of its own, detached from the passage of time. No one dared to venture near. The street itself was often deserted, as if the house's eerie presence had driven away all signs of life. The lawn was overgrown, a tangled mess of weeds and thorns. Nature had reclaimed the land, as if trying to hide the house from prying eyes. Windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the world. They were broken and empty, yet they seemed to follow you, watching your every move. The house on Harlow Street had a hunger, a deep, insatiable hunger that seemed to emanate from its very walls. The front door, old and creaky, was always slightly ajar, as if inviting the unwary to step inside. But those who did were never seen again. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving behind the windows, ghostly silhouettes that vanished when you looked directly at them. At night, strange lights flickered inside the house, casting an eerie glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Old photographs of the house showed it in better days, a grand mansion that once stood proudly on Harlow Street. But those days were long gone. Newspaper clippings told stories of disappearances, of people who had gone into the house and never returned. The headlines spoke of a haunted house, a place of unspeakable horrors. Inside it was said that books would open on their own, pages turning as if guided by an invisible hand. Eerie sounds filled the air, the creaking of floors, the whispers of voices long gone. The old, rusted gate at the front would swing open by itself, as if welcoming new victims. An abandoned child's toy covered in dust lay forgotten in the corner, a silent testament to the lives that had been lost. On moonlit nights, the house seemed almost alive, bathed in an otherworldly glow that made it look even more sinister. A clock inside the house was forever frozen at midnight, as if time itself had stopped within its walls. A diary found inside contained frantic writings, the last words of those who'd been trapped within. The house on Harlow Street remains a mystery, a place of fear and fascination. Its secrets are buried deep, waiting for the next soul brave enough to uncover them. Whiskers disappears. Mrs. Peabody's ginger cat, Whiskers, was the first to go. Whiskers was a beloved member of the Peabody household, known for his playful antics and his habit of napping in the sunniest spots on the porch. His ginger fur and bright green eyes made him a striking figure, easily recognizable in the neighborhood. One moment he was napping on the porch, the next gone, vanished into thin air. It was as if he had been spirited away by some unseen force. The porch, once a place of warmth and comfort, now felt eerily empty without Whiskers' presence. The suddenness of his disappearance left everyone in shock. Mrs. Peabody searched, her heart heavy, but Whiskers was nowhere to be found. She called out his name, hoping to hear the familiar jingle of his collar or the soft padding of his paws. She looked under bushes, behind trees, and even in the neighbor's yard, but there was no sign of him. The neighborhood joined in the search, but it was as if Whiskers had simply vanished from the face of the earth. Only his collar remained lying on the sidewalk in front of the house on Harlow Street. The sight of the collar sent a chill down Mrs. Peabody's spine. The house on Harlow Street had always been a place of mystery and fear, with its dark windows and eerie silence. Finding Whiskers' collar there only deepened the sense of dread. What had happened to Whiskers? Where had he gone? The questions haunted Mrs. Peabody as she clutched the collar to her chest, tears streaming down her face. The disappearance of Whiskers was just the beginning of a series of strange events that would soon unfold in the quiet town. Whispers and worries. Word spread like wildfire. A missing cat was one thing, but the collar on the sidewalk, that was unsettling. People whispered about the house, their voices hushed with fear. The house on Harlow Street had always been a source of unease, but now it was a whispered threat. Missing more than just meow. More cats disappeared, patches, midnight shadow, each time their collars turned up on the sidewalk, in front of the house, like calling cards of something sinister. The families were distraught, their pleas for answers echoing unanswered. Something had to be done. The lure of the unknown. Mr. Finnegan, whose beloved Luna was the latest victim, decided to take matters into his own hands. Driven by grief and a desperate hope, he approached the house. The closer he got, the colder the air felt, a chill that seeped into his bones and settled in his heart. As he peered through a dusty window, he saw a glimmer in the darkness, a faint light emanating from the basement. His heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of fear and adrenaline. He had to know, had to see if Luna was down there. Carefully, he pried open the basement door. The stench hit him first. The putrid odor of decay and something else, something metallic and raw. He crept down the creaking stairs, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The light grew stronger, revealing a scene that made his blood run cold. In the center of the basement, illuminated by a single bare bulb, was a table. The light cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the room feel even more claustrophobic. The air was thick with a musty smell, and the silence was almost deafening. The table, old and worn, stood as the centerpiece of this unsettling scene. But it wasn't the table that horrified him, it was the sight that lay upon it. His heart raced, and his breath quickened as he tried to comprehend the grotesque display before him. The dim light flickered, adding to the sense of dread that enveloped him. It was what was on it, a feast of sorts, but this was no ordinary meal. The table was covered with scattered fish bones, scraps of food, and remnants of what once might have been a grand banquet. The sight was both bizarre and disturbing, as if a macabre celebration had taken place here. And at the head of the table, Luna, her eyes vacant and staring, a collar next to her plate. Luna, the family cat, sat motionless, her once vibrant eyes now dull and lifeless. The collar, a symbol of her domesticated life, lay discarded beside her, adding to the surreal nature of the scene. Mr. Finnegan backed away slowly, his stomach churning. The realization of what he was witnessing began to sink in, and a wave of nausea washed over him. He could feel the bile rising in his throat as he struggled to maintain his composure. The room seemed to close in on him, and the walls felt like they were closing in. He had to get out, but his legs felt like lead. The horror of the scene was almost too much to bear, and he knew he would never forget this night. But it was too late. The door slammed shut with a resounding boom, plunging him into darkness. He was trapped in the house on Harlow Street with whatever had taken Luna and the others. He was about to become another course in the house's horrifying feast. The house on Harlow Street remained silent and menacing, a testament to the unseen horrors that lurked within. No one dared to approach, the memory of the missing families a chilling reminder. The house had been hungry and it had been fed. The house always wins.